Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a relatively brief video, about 4 to 5 minutes. It's going to be discussing a hypothetical situation in which the US economy kind of collapses. I know a lot of people were thinking about a week ago that the stock market was going to crash. Warren Buffett, of course, sold a lot of his stocks, especially a lot of those long-term investors were looking like, they were preparing for a stock market crash. Seems as if the stock market for now has rebounded. However, of course, anything's subject to change. Jerome Powell, it is depending on if he what he does with the interest rates could affect the long term economy and the short term economy. Of course, this one of these things is one of the keys in Alan Lichtman's. Um, I forget if it's the 15 keys or what, how many keys to the White House it is. So it does have a big effect, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many political experts, on how the election would go. And I certainly believe that if the economy did crash, it would negatively affect Kamala Harris. So in this hypothetical scenario, it would favor Trump. There's of course going to be hypothetical scenarios that I'll be making in the future going the other way. However, in this situation, this certainly, just prepare yourself for this, will be a negative situation for Kamala Harris. With that being said, let's get into our safe Trump states in this situation. This, of course, would be a stock market crash, most likely, triggering an economic recession. Now, this is a hypothetical situation. Certainly may not happen. In this scenario, states like Iowa and Ohio would move over to that safe column, including Maine's second congressional district. So instead of the usual 125 safe red states, it would be 149. Safe Kamala Harris states would be relatively the same states. I'm not going to get super in depth about the margins, although, excuse me, not New Hampshire. States like New Jersey definitely will be much more competitive than a state like Maryland, for instance. Although at the end of the day, regardless of what happens, I think across the country, they will be pretty solid in favor of the Democrats. That is typically what happens in situations like this. Regardless, if the Democrats, as Nancy Pelosi says, ran a water bottle with a D next to it in these races, I mean, a Democrat would win very likely all of these states. Republicans can't really do anything; they're just not liked in those regions of the country. Um, so even in situations like this, you really can't. It comes down to much fewer states than the 50 states that we all know, encapsulate the United States. Just not the safe states. Just looking at the regular states, we got, Arizona, Nevada, clear toss-ups. Although states like Colorado still, in situations like this, wouldn't be too favorable for Republicans, and you're going to see that Colorado would be a likely Democrat state. That's going to be the only likely Democrat state in this situation. There will be lean states for the Democrats. However, um, even in hypotheticals like this, Colorado likely wouldn't waver and would remain a Democrat stronghold or likely state. Florida and Texas would become likely Republican states, as well as the state of North Carolina. We were seeing a lot of polls out of North Carolina that had Trump significantly up on Joe Biden. However, after he stepped aside and Kamala Harris replaced him as the nominee of the party, they've seemed to narrow up. Of course, there was the YouGov poll that had it a tie. I wouldn't necessarily trust that poll. It's much more of a left leaning poll. I would assume that at the moment, although we have to wait for more polls to be released, Trump is leading by about 3 to 4 points in the state of North Carolina. Regardless of the margin at the end of the day, I think on November 5th or November 6th, whenever it's called, it will go in Donald Trump's column. I think it's pretty much his floor. This is essentially his floor, regardless of any election or anything that happens in the election. Possibly North Carolina could flip. That would be the only other state of these that I would assume, but 235 is likely going to be Trump's floor this time around. And for Harris, it's going to be about 225. I don't really see her going below 225 in this situation. Of course, only one difference would be the state of Nevada between her and Hillary Clinton in that regard. Lean states: state of New Mexico, state of Virginia, Nebraska second congressional district. We were seeing some pretty recent polls that had her doing fairly well in that area of Nebraska, and I do think she'll end up winning there. Trump, of course, pretty unpopular among suburban women. In the state of Minnesota, I think she would narrowly hold on, although she is becoming pretty unpopular among a lot of the Arab residents of the state of Minnesota, as well as the state of Michigan, and that will negatively affect her because she, whether she likes it or not, is one of the faces of the Biden administration, the Biden Harris administration, of course, people call it. She's the vice president. Joe Biden picked her to be vice president. She had, it's her stamp of approval on the administration, and many of the Arabs in Minnesota and Michigan are very upset with regard to the Biden Harris administration's policy toward Gaza and Israel, and that will negatively affect her in the election, whether she likes it or not. I don't really think anything she can do, whether, possibility of a ceasefire proposal could help them out a little bit. Although many of the people that live there don't even want a ceasefire. They want um, all of the Palestinian people to just basically return to Israel and take over the country. And Harris doesn't support that, and it creates a real divide in the party. Anyway, 222. I'm leaving out the state of New Hampshire for now. I think you definitely could get into that tilt margin. Harris and Clinton kind of mirror each other a little bit. Although I think Hillary was actually a more formidable candidate than Kamala Harris, although many people are saying Harris is doing very well. I don't really fully trust that. Also, at the same time, people are talking about how Trump campaign is spiraling out of control. Keep in mind, in 2020 and in 2016, at this point in time, 4 years ago and 8 years ago, Trump was doing far worse in the polls, far worse in the campaign, far worse in the media in their perception of how he was doing in this campaign. He was guaranteed to lose both of those elections. In this, at least pre election analysis, he has a chance at it. So, for all of the people out there that are saying, Trump is done and he's doomed, you can't, do not count him out, first of all. Second of all, he's still, in my opinion, the favorite to win the presidency. I know some predictive models have said that Harris slightly favors now. I still think Trump is the favorite to win. Also, keep in mind, a lot of these Rust Belt polls have historically underestimated Trump. A lot of the polls across the country have historically underestimated Trump, given the fact that they're ties or Harris plus one or Trump plus one. Keep that in mind as well. I mean, Trump could certainly be leading, even in a state like Wisconsin, where, maybe there's a poll that has Harris up 1 point, could be leading by 2 to 3 points there with that um, underestimation issue with Trump. Now, maybe it won't happen this time around, but historically and in 2020 and in 2016, it's happened. In Wisconsin, for instance, there was that, I believe, ABC poll, 538 poll back in 2020 that came out a week before the election that had Biden winning the state by 17 points. We all know he won the state, but he won it by 0.6%. It was so much less than what that poll anticipated. Same thing with regard to most of the polls in the Rust Belt. So I'd like to keep that in mind as well. Anyway, in the scenario of an economic collapse, the state of Georgia would lean in favor of Trump, as well as the state of Arizona, Nevada, and a lot of these Rust Belt states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Getting into 297 and winning the presidency, the Rust Belt states would much more be favorable. He'd win Pennsylvania by about 3 points, Wisconsin by about 3 points as well. Harris, in my opinion, would slightly tilt the state of New Hampshire in her favor. I think it's pretty difficult for Trump to end up winning in New Hampshire. However, he would knock down that blue wall, that so-called blue wall again that Biden somewhat rebuilt, and win 312 to 226. Now, this is what many of the predictive models suggested would be the final outcome against Trump and Biden. And then once Biden stepped aside, um, the predictive models changed. However, in this sort of scenario, I think that Trump would end up having this sort of election finale and winning, of course, 312 to 226, going on to become 47th president. Anyway, with that being said, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let me know your thoughts on this hypothetical scenario in the comments below. Have a great day, and I'll see you all soon.